experiments to impress his masters. In November, he came up with this, a rotating glass sphere. He was able to remove the air from inside it using a new machine, the air pump. On his machine, a handle allowed him to spin the sphere. One by one, the candles in the room were put out. And Francis placed his hand against the sphere. The audience were about to see something amazing. Inside the glass sphere, a strange ethereal light began to form, dancing around his hand. A light no one had ever seen before. Oh, that's fantastic. See the beautiful blue glow just marking out the shape of my hands, but then going right round the wall. It's as though there's something alive in there. It's difficult to really understand why this dancing blue light meant so much. But we have to bear in mind that at the time, natural phenomena like this were seen to be the work of the Almighty.
This was still a period when, even in Isaac Newton's
Hey guys, welcome to Forward. We're a new type of doctor's office that's providing preventative primary care. We've got world-class doctors supported by the most advanced medical technology. Now, one of the really cool things about Forward is you can schedule same-day visits with no wait times and we don't charge co-pays. So after your self-service check-in, then you're going to head back to a biometric body scanner. Now, the body scanner's purpose is to track trends, monitor progress, but also identify health threats earlier. Check it out. So this is it. I'm super excited to show it to you guys today. All I'm going to do is just step onto the scanner like so. Next, I'm going to tap into our demo account. I'm going to choose my sex. Now what it's first doing is it's creating and building a thermal map of my body, and it's allowing us to see my temperature in real time on the screen, which is pretty cool. And in a moment, the body scanner is just going to prompt me to take my left hand, just lay it flat here on the ledge like so, and I'm just going to slide it straight back towards the wall, just like the fast. Now what's happening is something called red light. It's just light shining through my finger, allowing us to see how my blood is actually flowing. First, you're seeing heart rate. We're using that same technology to also do
as you can get it. Inside it are a few atoms of whatever impurity is required to alter this conductive process. Now, the rotating bar above has a seed crystal at the bottom that's been dipped into the liquid and slowly raised up again. As that vanadium cools and hardens, it forms a long crystal like an icicle below the seed. The whole length is one single beautiful titanium crystal. Teal worked out that as the crystal is growing, other impurities can be added to the vat and mixed in. This gives us a single crystal with
Is your network slow and underperforming? Does your IT support take forever? No need to panic. At Platte River Networks, we've created Intuition, a robust management solution that'll help your company improve IT performance from the server infrastructure to the desktop and everything in between. We'll design, build, monitor, constantly your technology network. Plus, not outsource it. Become part of your team. To learn more, contact us today.
thin layers of different impurities, creating junctions within the crystal. This crystal with two junctions in it was a shock stream. Apply a strong current through was seen to be the work of the Almighty.
This was still a period when, even in Isaac Newton's theory, God was constantly intervening in the conduct of the world, and so it made sense for a lot of people to interpret natural phenomena as acts of God.
So when a mere mortal meddled with God's work, it was almost beyond rational comprehension. Hawksby never realised the full significance of his experiment. He lost interest in his glowing sphere and spent the last few years of his life building ever more spectacular experiments for Isaac Newton to test his other theories. He never realised that he'd unwittingly started an electrical revolution. Before Hawksby, electricity had been merely a curiosity. The ancient Greeks rubbed amber, which they called electron, to get small shocks. And even Queen Elizabeth I marvelled at static electricity's power to lift feathers. But now, Hawksby's machine could make electricity at the turn of a handle, and you could see it. And perhaps even more importantly, his invention coincided with the birth of a new movement sweeping across Europe called the Enlightenment. Enlightenment intellectuals used reason to question the world, and their legacy was radical politics, iconoclastic art, and natural philosophy, or science. But ironically, Hawksby's new machine wasn't immediately embraced by most of these intellectuals, but instead by conjurers and street magicians. And those with an interest in electricity called themselves electricians. One story tells of a dinner party attended by an Austrian count. The electrician had placed some feathers on the table and then charged up a glass rod with a silk handkerchief. He then astonished the guests by lifting up the feathers with the rod. He then went on to charge himself up using one of Hawksby's electrical machines and gave the guests electric shocks, presumably to squeals and commands. His pièce de résistance, placed a glass of cognac in the centre of the table, charged himself up again and lit it with a spark from the tip of his finger.
There was a trick called the electrical beatification, in which the victim sits on an insulated chair and above his head hangs a metal crown that doesn't quite touch his head. And then if the crown is electrified, then you get an electric discharge around the crown that looks exactly like a halo, which is why it's called the electric beatification.
As England and the rest of Europe went electricity crazy, the spectacles grew bigger, and the more curious electricians started to ask more profound questions. Not only how can we make our shows bigger and better, but how can we control this amazing power? And for some, can this incredible electrical fire do more than just entertain? One of the first early breakthroughs would never have happened had it not been for a terrible accident. This is Charterhouse in the centre of London. Over the past 400 years, it's been a charitable home for young orphans and elderly gentlemen. And sometime in the 1720s, it also became home to one Stephen Gray. Stephen Gray had been a successful silk dyer from Canterbury. He was used to seeing electric sparks leap from the silk, and they fascinated him. Unfortunately, a crippling accident ended his career and left him destitute. But then he was offered a new life here at Charterhouse, and with it, the time to perform his own electrical experiments. Here at Charterhouse, possibly in this very room, the Great Chamber, Stephen Gray built a wooden frame. From the top beam, he suspended 2 swings using silk rope. He also had a device like this, a Hawksby machine, for generating static electricity. Now, with a large audience in attendance, he got one of the orphan boys who lived here at Charterhouse to lie across the 2 swings. Gray placed some gold leaf in front of him. He then generated electricity and charged the boy through a connecting rod. Gold leaf, even feathers, leapt to the boy's fingers. Some of the audience claimed they could even see sparks flying out from his fingertips. Show business indeed. But to the curious and inquiring mind of Stephen Gray, this said something else as well. Electricity could move from the machine to the boy's body through to his hands. But the silk rope stopped it dead. It meant the mysterious electrical fluid could flow through some things, but not through others. It led Gray to divide the world into 2 different kinds of substances. He called them insulators and conductors. Insulators held electric charge within them and wouldn't let it move, like silk, or hair, glass, resin, whereas conductors allowed electricity to flow through them, like the boy, or metals. It's a distinction which is still crucial even today. Just think of these electric pylons. They work on the same principle that Gray deduced nearly 300 years ago. The wires are conductors. The glass and ceramic objects between the wire and the metal of the pylon are insulators that stop the electricity leaking from the wires into the pylon and down to the earth. They're just like the silk ropes in Gray's experiment. Back in the 1730s, Gray's experiment may have astounded all who saw it, but it had a frustrating drawback. Try as he might, Gray couldn't contain the electricity he was generating for long. It leapt from the machine to the boy and was quickly gone. The next step in our story came when we learnt how to store electricity, and that would take place not in Britain, but across the Channel in mainland Europe. Across the Channel, electricians were just as busy as their British counterparts, and one centre for electrical research was here in Leiden, Holland. And it was here that a professor came up with an invention that many still regard as the most significant of the 18th century, one that, in some form or another, can still be found in almost every electrical device today. That professor was Peter van Buschenbroek. Unlike Hawksby and Gray, Buschenbroek was born into academia. because of a simple human mistake. He was trying to find a way to store electrical charge ready for his demonstrations, and you can almost hear his train of thought as he tries to figure this out. If electricity is a fluid that flows, a bit like water, then maybe you can store it in the same way that you can store water. So Mushimura went to his laboratory to try to make a device to store electricity. Mushimura started to think literally. He took a glass jar and poured in some water. He then placed inside it a length of conducting wire, which was connected at the top to a Hawksby electric machine. Then he put the jar on an insulator to help keep the charge in the jar. He then tried to pour the electricity into the jar, produced by the machine, via the wire, down through into the water. But whatever he tried, the charge just wouldn't stay in the jar. Then one day, by accident, he forgot to put the jar on the insulator, but charged it instead while it was still in his hand. Finally, holding the jar with one hand, he touched the top with the other and received such a powerful electric shock it was almost thrown to the ground. He writes, "It's a new but terrible experiment which I advise you never to try. Nor would I, who've experienced it and survived by the grace of God, do it again for all the kingdom of France. So I'm going to heed his advice, not touch the top, and instead see if I can get a spark." The sheer power of the electricity which flew from the jar was greater than any seen before. And even more surprisingly, the jar could store that electricity for hours, even days. So in honor of the city where Muschenbroek made his discovery, they called it the Leyden jar. And its fame swept across the world.
And very rapidly from 1745 through the rest of the 1740s, the news of this, it's called the Leyden jar, goes global. It spreads from Japan in East Asia to Philadelphia in Eastern America. It became one of the first quick, globalized scientific news items.
But although the Leyden jar became a global electrical phenomenon, no one had the slightest idea how it worked.
You have a jar of electric fluid, and it turns out that you get a bigger shock from the jar if you allow the electric fluid to drain away to the earth. Why is the shock bigger if the jar's leaking? Why isn't the shock bigger if you make sure that all the electric fluid stays inside the jar? That was how mid-18th century electrical philosophers were faced with this challenge.
Electricity was without doubt a fantastical wonder. It could shock and spark. It could now be stored and moved around. Yet what electricity was, how it worked, and why it did all these things was nothing less than a complete mystery. Within 10 years, a new breakthrough was to come from an unexpected quarter, from a man politically and philosophically at war with the London establishment. And even more shockingly for the British electrical elite, that man was merely a colonial, an American. This painting of Benjamin Franklin hangs here at the Royal Society in London.
this is mixed with a profoundly egalitarian democratic idea that Franklin and his allies have, which is this is a phenomenon open to everyone. Here's something that the elite doesn't really understand, and we might be able to understand. Here's something that the elite can't control, but we might be able to control. And here's something above all, which is the source of superstition. And we, rational, egalitarian, potentially democratic intellectuals, we will be able to reason it out. It's a magical mystery.
So Franklin decided to use the power of reason to rationally explain what many considered a magical phenomenon, lightning. This is probably one of the most famous scientific images of the 18th century. It shows Benjamin Franklin, the heroic scientist, flying a kite in a storm, proving that lightning is electrical. But although Franklin proposed this experiment, he almost certainly never performed it. Much more likely is that his most significant experiment was another one, which he proposed but didn't even conduct. In fact, it didn't even happen in America. It took place here in a small village north of Paris called Vail. The French adored Franklin, especially his anti-British politics, and they took it upon themselves to perform his other lightning experiments without him. I've come to the very spot where that experiment took place. In May 1752, El-Hewie known across France as the Comte de Vail, and his friend Thomas-Francois Delibar erected a 40-foot metal pole more than twice as high as this one, held in place by 3 wooden staves just outside Delibar's house here in Vail. The metal pole rested at the bottom inside an empty wine bottle. Franklin's big idea had been that the long pole would capture the lightning, pass it down the metal rod, and store it in the wine bottle at the base, which worked as a Leyden jar. Then he could confirm what lightning actually was. All his French followers had to do was wait for a storm. And then on May 23rd, the heavens opened. At 12:20, a loud thunderclap was heard as lightning hit the top of the pole. An assistant ran to the bottle. A spark leapt across between the metal and his fingers with a loud crack and a sulphurous smell burning his hand. The spark revealed lightning for what it really was. It was the same as the electricity made by man. It's hard to overestimate the significance of this moment. Nature had been mastered. Not only that, but the wrath of God itself had been brought under the control of mankind. It was a kind of heresy.
Franklin's experiment was very important because it showed that lightning storms are produced by electricity, and that you can bring this electricity down. That electricity is a force of nature that's waiting out there to be tapped.
Next, Franklin turned his rational mind to another question. Why the Leyden jar made the biggest sparks when it was held in the hand? Why didn't all the electricity just drain away? And drawing on his experience as a successful businessman, he saw something no one else had. That, like money in a bank, electricity can be in credit, what he called positive, or debit.